Welcome to Not So New News, where we discover what is hidden in newspapers from 100 years ago. Today's article comes from the town of Whitesburg and appeared in Letcher County's oldest newspaper, the Mountain Eagle. Volume 2, number 19, dated January 7th, 1909. This reading is from the writings done in 1909. These views are from that time period and do not necessarily reflect the modern views of Kentucky Tennessee living, nor its narrator. However, we feel that all historical documents must be preserved for the future and strive not to change one word of the readings. However, if we feel that the readings are too controversial in both political or religious standing, we will either silently put up the article for viewing or will direct everyone where it can be found online. Thank you for your understanding. Extra notation. During the December editions of the Mountain Eagle, we have come across a controversy about whether or not a woman should be educated. Please remember, this happened back in 1909 and is no longer a controversial subject, as men and women are both granted the same educations today. However, we will be airing both sides as to the arguments that they gave during this debate at that time. The Home Circle. Dedicated to tired mothers and children as they join the home circle at evening tide. Crude thoughts by the editor. Dear reader, just suppose you and I sit down and have an old-fashioned common sense talk. This, you know, is 1909, and really the first Sunday in that year. A good time to look back down the calendar and then back up the calendar and see where we are at. It never pays to linger long on the past. That at its best is gloomy enough, except to check up and pry into where we have made our mistakes. Now, you know, dear reader, that it is not wise to repeat the same mistakes over and over. If I made a mistake yesterday, I must not do the same thing again today. Even the child that has burned its finger is afraid of fire. Are we less senseless or less wise than a child? It would be difficult to name anything in all the world that is greater than a straightforward, honest, sober man. Man was made that way in the very image of his Maker. I like to think of a man of that form and mold. Adam was that. The patriarchs of old were that. Christ was that. The apostles were that. Bunyan, after passing through the forge and the fire, was that. And there were other, quote, that's, unquote. I think John Knox was that many of the Pilgrim Fathers, the heroes of the Revolution, the founders of this nation, the millions of others who have never made a track on history's page, were the very embodiment of their designer. How important to us, our generation, that we maintain this heritage. We ought not to live in such a way that our children could not, after our race is run, refer to us with pride. Don't you think so? Be honest now and say yes, only if you mean it. Otherwise, say, quote, no, I believe in a man being a dog and not the image of the one who fashioned and formed me, unquote. Dear friend, these questions and answers are very pointed, but none too much for this particular age of our lives. And now, ere we part, and since we were aroused only a few mornings ago, in its wee hours to find ourselves in the dawn of a brand new year, let us, you and I, if God permits us to live, walk in the way that is well-pleasing. Let us stay sober, walk orderly, upright, honest, and clean. Let the old year keep forever hid in its archives the foolishness and the follies that so much encumbered us. May every person in the mountains do all he can to spread the good influences everywhere, is the honest wish of this humble petitioner. A mother's love. There is an old legend that runs in this wise. At creation's dawn, an angel came down to earth, and before returning, looked about for something to carry back to heaven. There were three things that attracted the attention of the white-winged messenger. A bouquet of sweet flowers that had been gathered from one of earth's fair and blooming gardens. The smile of a little baby that had just been playing with a sunbeam, and a mother's love. These three things the angel carried away, but when it reached the pearly gates of paradise, the flowers had withered. The baby's smile had vanished, only the mother's love remained the same. And being found as pure and eternal as the waters that flowed by God's throne, all the angels that reigned above exclaimed in unison, quote, "There is nothing on earth pure enough for heaven but a woman's love." Unquote. This was a tribute containing a sublime thought. And through all the ages, it has been human experience that the angels referred to in that legend were not over extravagant in the message which they passed out through the open windows of the many mansions along the banks of the river of gold. Speak kindly to your neighbor. Perhaps the nature you have inwardly called morose and selfish is only oversensitive, and the social word you utter may cause it to unfold and expand, and become indeed a power for good. The girl on the farm. The farmer's girl does not generally realize the advantages she has for self-improvement over the society girl or those situated in other positions of life. The freedom and independence of farm life afforded opportunities for study which, if rightly employed, would develop our farmers' girls into the professional women workers of our times. How is it, girls, and especially you girls on the farm, that we hear so often of the self-made man? And most of our great men are of that class, and so little of the self-made woman. Our farmer boys become great lawyers, statesmen, etc. Have you not the same opportunities as they? The girl who has been raised on the farm and has aspirations to any of the professions generally conceives the idea that she must get away from the farm to do her studying at the very first jump. Do not be too hasty in leaving the farm, where you can keep such perfect health, which is the great requisite to a brilliant mind. And, first of all, before you aspire to any professional work, learn your duties as a housekeeper. Household work will not interfere with study. You require exercise, and there is none better than keeping a farmhouse. And if you do not wish to take up any profession, study will not harm you. Make the most of the talents nature has given you, and when the happy fellow has met your happiness, will be of the kind that you will not regret the time you considered wasted in study. Do not be too hasty in running your neck into the matrimonial noose. If you, from choice, should remain single, do not fear. You will have to, from necessity. You will find plenty of work to do, plenty of burdens to lighten, and plenty of loveless ones upon whom to lavish the wealth of your charitable affections. Be assured that true happiness is not found in living for oneself alone. Do your best and make most of the material at hand. And at the close of life's journey, you will enjoy that peace, that knowledge of the well-spent life alone can give. This concludes today's reading of the January 7th, 1909 Mountain Eagle. We at Kentucky Tennessee Living would like to thank you for your continued support as we bring to you the history of the Appalachian Mountains.